Over the last few years, I've been lucky enough and worked hard enough to build a very profitable Amazon business. And in this video, I'm going to break down, in my opinion, the worst to the best business models within the Amazon FBA space, because there isn't just one. Some people think there's just one. Private label, for example. There's actually multiple business models inside Amazon, and they're not all equal. So in this video, I'm going to break down my tier list, the best and the worst, and everything in between. Stay tuned. If you don't know who I am, my name's Hayden and I run a multiple six-figure Amazon FBA business. I sell in the UK and I sell in the USA. And as I say, I've done multiple business models and tested a lot of stuff in around about the 4 years or just under that I've been selling on Amazon. Okay, I haven't got any courses to sell, I don't sell any training or anything like that, but I share what I think is valuable information on here so that your lives are easier when you're trying to build your Amazon. Just before we dive in, let me just thank my sponsor, who is awesome, for helping me to sponsor this video. If you want to set up a limited company for only £12, hit the link below, and it's only £12. Or if you want £100 off any accounting services with them, hit the link below. Let's carry on with the video. So from what I know, in my opinion, you've got 5 main models within the Amazon space. You've got brand building, which is sort of private label, creating your own listings, building a brand, whether you're doing that with unique bundles or private label that you're importing from China. In my opinion, it all comes under the same bracket, that sort of brand building. Then you've got like wholesale, for example, where you're just buying from wholesales, opening up wholesale accounts, some that are quite hard to open. The harder they are to open, the higher barrier to entry it is. And then you've got things like brand deals. Now, brand deals is where some of the biggest sellers in the UK, that's for sure, that I know, do brand deals. And that's where you're opening accounts from manufacturers directly, and you're one of, or very few, ones to have the rights to that brand deal, to that brand account, so that you're the only one in some cases that can sell that brand on Amazon and other platforms, okay? And then the next one we've got is online arbitrage. Online arbitrage is where you're getting VAs, a group of VAs, or you're doing it yourself and you're scrolling through, doing lots of research with different methods, and you're finding deals online stores, and then you're reselling them on Amazon. And then you've got retail arbitrage. Retail arbitrage is another one where you're actually doing it physically in the shops. You're going around finding deals, reselling that on Amazon and other platforms. So that's the 5 different things, 5 different methods that I know of that I'm going to be talking about. So let's dive into this. And once again, just to be clear, guys, this is my opinion from my experience. I'm well aware of the fact that some people will disagree with this, and that's absolutely fine. Let me know in the comments what you think the tier list is. But let's start off. Number 5, in my opinion, I'm going the worst to the best. So number 5, in my opinion, which is the least attractive business model for me, is online arbitrage. So let me explain what online arbitrage is. Online arbitrage is where you or VAs that you've hired from the Philippines usually, or India, etc., will look through stores in the UK or the USA, depending where you're based, and you will then send these products to a prep center, and then they will send them to a fulfillment center for you. A lot of these deals you're going to be finding are on sale or on clearance. And then the idea is that whatever you sell them for at their full price on Amazon, you will then reap the profits in between, and then you just keep recycling that. Now, there's a few problems with this business model. Now, just to be clear, I used to do this when I started. I still do this now, okay? But I don't do it in the UK. It's very different for different marketplaces. So if I was based in the USA, this would be a different video. This would not be number 5 in my tier list. But because I'm in the UK, I'm talking about UK online arbitrage in this case. And for me, it's not attractive because it's highly unstable. The problem with it is that when you resell your products, if a lot of the times people buy them from deal sheets, which means there's loads of other sellers that are going to jump on that Amazon listing with you. So that means that the higher the competition, the lower profit you're going to make, because more sellers on that listing, the price is going to keep getting knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, so that eventually sometimes you lose money, break even, or just making 50p or £1 per sale. And then sometimes you've got to wait for sellers to sell out and actually make your money, or sometimes the price just doesn't recover for ages. You've got to pay fees to Amazon for storage fees for holding that product, and it can just be really unattractive and just not stable. So for me, that's why number 5 on my tier list, the worst business model for me on Amazon, one of the worst, is online arbitrage. I'm just not a fan of it, really. It's never something that I've been able to settle with. I do it myself, but it's not in my long-term goals. It's not something that I personally am happy to settle with as a business model. But that's not to say it doesn't work for some people. And it's not to say it's not a great model to start with so that you can understand the Amazon space and then venture into something else. So that's number 5. So number 4 for me is retail arbitrage. So retail arbitrage for me is also not the most attractive business model, but it's also got very, very good potential, especially for beginners. So let me talk about this. So retail arbitrage is similar to online arbitrage. However, you are in store. You are actually physically driving around shops in most cases with a car or a van or a truck, depending on the level of business that you're doing. Some people do this in a big way, which it can be very profitable. And you're looking for deals that are on sale or on clearance so that you can resell on Amazon. Now, once again, this is an issue in ways because once again, it's competition. If you go into a Sainsbury's clearance section or a sale section, a generic seasonal sale that a lot of these companies have, they have seasonal sales, different peaks and troughs at the time of the year. They have some for example, Sainsbury's have a summer sale, and not just you know about that. So that means a lot of competition could jump on these listings and then once again, knock your profit down and corrode that profit over time. And once again, you're gonna have to wait for it to recover or just sell out at a lower price. Now, not in all cases. Once again, I know people that do this very, very profitable. Okay, that's why it's number 4 and not number 5. This can be a profitable business model and you can scale it up. I would say to maybe a few $100,000 a year if you're really focusing on it. It's like your all-in strategy, and this is your favorite strategy that you do. You build relationships with retail store owners. You do research before you leave so that you can drive around to these shops knowing exactly what you're going to buy, and you can buy out the shop so that other people can't buy it. And you could get great clearance deals that are actually reduced to like £1 or £2. You can sell them for 30, 40, 50 pounds on Amazon, but they're quite rare. So here's the thing. I think it's a great model and I think it's a great business model if you're committed and if you go all in. But the problem with this, the reason it's number 4 on my tier list is because it's geographically restricted, which means that, for example, I am currently in Greece and I'm here for 10 days and my income isn't affected. Okay, I've hired this apartment, I'm sitting here and, I'm doing this video with you and I'm still earning money from my Amazon businesses because we don't do retail arbitrage. If I was to stop going out and actually sourcing products myself, driving around to stores with retail arbitrage, my income would stop. So look, it depends what you're interested in. If you're happy to physically go around and do it, then great. It can be a good model, but you've still got to do a lot of research up hand. You've got to learn about that business model. You've got to learn how to do it. You've got to do your research at home before you do it. It's not as easy as going out. I've tried that many times looking for products. Sometimes you come back with empty-handed. You have to do research beforehand. You have to build relationships with store owners and everything like that. And you have to know exactly the type of category that you're selling in to have the most success so that you can see the brands that you know sell well. You can see the stores that you know have certain deals at certain times of the year. And then once again, if you stick in it, you master it over time. I know people that can do very well from it, but for me, it's just not scalable enough. It's not scalable enough. I want to be doing, I've got plans to do $500,000 a month, like we're doing nowhere near that at the moment. Did about 80,000 something last month, but I want to be doing $500,000 a month, $1 million a month in years to come. And you can't do that with retail arbitrage unless you've got a huge team. I don't know anyone that does that amount of numbers with retail arbitrage. So that's why it's number 4 on my tier list, but I still think it's a very good model. And I think that if you really commit to it, you can have really good success from it because a lot of people are not doing it. So anyway, let's move on. So number 3 is wholesale. So wholesale is where it's similar to online arbitrage. However, what you're doing in this case with wholesale is you're opening wholesale accounts. In many times, you're not the exclusive account holder. That's brand deals, which is different. I'm not complicating brand deals with wholesale. I'm separating them out because I think there's people that do wholesale and then there's brand deals and it's a different thing. A lot of people do both models at the same time. But in this particular tier that I'm talking about, number 3, is wholesale. Now, wholesale is an extremely scalable business, okay? However, it can come with very small margins. If you open a wholesale account with some big wholesalers in the UK, for example, and you can start buying unlimited quantities of these products. That can be great because you can scale, okay? And you haven't got to mess around with buying 5 to 10 different items of online arbitrage. However, bear in mind, you're not going to be the only seller. Once again, it could be similar to online arbitrage, but with less competition in many cases, where you could get 15 to 20 sellers on a listing, for example, that you've all managed to open that wholesale account. But you're going to be doing very small margins in most cases, because wholesale is more of a volume game with lower margins. So people that do this model tend to be people that are very analytical, or they've got their own wholesale, they've got their own warehouse, and they've managed to really finely cut out all the details so that they're streamlining their profit. Even if they're making 30 to 50p an item they sell, they're selling tens of thousands of products a month, which makes it worth it. And they watch the variable costs. If you don't watch the variable costs, say for example, let's say that the minimum wage in the UK goes up, okay, then that minimum wage increase for all of your 10 staff members, for example, could corrode a huge percentage of your tiny margins that you're making if you're not careful. So people that do this business model tend to be, and I would advise to be, more analytical types, not necessarily the creative type, but more analytical types that are going to really be careful about their spending, their outsourcing, their staff member, how much they're paying everyone, how much they're paying for their premises, and they look at every single number. There's a lot of Amazon sellers that are not analytical, and they run their business sort of just ad hoc and just look at seller board and work out rough numbers. That won't cut it when you're making small margins. If you're making small margins, you have to watch the numbers carefully to make sure you're still in profit. So yeah, it's got other things. It's got pros and cons to it. Once again, it's very scalable, and you can scale that up. A lot of sellers, that if you've got investment to put into it, a lot of sellers haven't. So you can afford to do the small margin game. But my main takeaway, my main fear, the reason that I do not do this business model is because I'm not analytical enough, and also I'm not interested in making such small margins. I know that some sellers are, and I know that for Tesco, for example, I know they're not a wholesaler, they're a retailer, but I think they work on like a 3% margin or something like that, or like a 2.6% total margin. So they're really low margins, and obviously it's worked for them. They're very successful. So some companies it can work for you, but you've got to be happy to making very small margin. And yeah. If the biggest issue I have with it, with wholesale, is that if you're making such small margins, if Amazon changed their fees, which has happened recently, and increased their fees by 3%, that could be all of your margin gone. And just overnight, your business is not profitable, and you have to find a way to make it more profitable, or wait for prices to restore slightly higher so that you can actually sort out that profit loss that you've made. So anyway, that's number 3 in my tier list. It can be a good model for those that stick to it, but for a lot of people it won't work. It will be full of frustrations. Let's move on to number 2. Now, number 2, I'll be honest with you, number 1 and number 2 are very similar in my case. Very similar. So this is very much my personal opinion on this, okay, from my experience, and I'm not 100% sure on which one's better. But number 2 in my tier list, okay, by a small margin, is brand building, private label, unique bundles, building a brand, whatever you want to call it. So I consider it brand building in general, okay? Now, this is the thing. So what you're doing with brand building is either you're importing your products from overseas, or you're creating your products full of other products, like your own bundles, for example. You're creating a brand, okay? A brand. But I'm mainly talking about when it's got huge potential, is when you're doing really solid private label, where you've got your manufactured products that you've got your own IP from. Okay, and you're importing them in large numbers. It's very scalable. You're building out a brand so that eventually people are actually searching for your brand. I've got a friend of mine in this space called Ben Leonard, who built a brand called Beast Gear, and he exited that for, I think, $2 to $3 million. And he was doing about $6 million of revenue yearly, with a very small freelance team, like 2 or 3 freelancers he had in himself. So yeah, and now he's building other brands as well, and he's got an acquisition company, whatever. So it's very scalable, okay, building brands. Now, you don't have to do it on such a big scale. Obviously, you can do something like I do, which is where I build my own brand, doing bundles and things like that. But you can build brands, and the potential of it to get on big levels is huge. Especially the USA sellers, they have multiple brands, and they stick to niches within them brands, and they get known. So people start searching for that brand. Now, downsides to this is that you've got to master PPC in a way, or you've got to outsource your PPC to a PPC agency. You need to know what you're doing. You need to spend a lot of money in some cases to rank your product so that you can organically get searched. And obviously the investment for products, especially if you're doing private label, which I don't do strict private label. You know, I build my brand with my own bundles and stuff like that, but I will be doing it soon. The investment outlay can be quite significant and the risk can be a lot higher. So it's not advisable to do this to start with, the private label stuff, but in my opinion, it's one of the best models, and it's essentially the end game for most people, as in like, build a brand, get loads of sales, and then exit that brand one day. You've got the ability to exit it. As I say, I know a few people, a few sellers, some personally, some not, that have exited brands for millions. And and they're building other brands as well. And it's just, and you can also take that brand off Amazon as well. You can take that brand off Amazon, but in some cases you can just build it on Amazon. So in my opinion, it's like almost the holy grail of Amazon is to have your own brands so that they can be worth millions and you can exit them for millions. Let's move on. Now, number one, in my opinion, is probably one of the best. Now, the people that I know that are the most successful sellers, okay, that I know, once again, this is from what I see in the UK, is sellers that do brand deals, okay? Now, you might be wondering why and brand deals, by the way, are when you have the exclusive rights to sell a brand's products on Amazon and other platforms. Now, the reason I've put this as number one in my tier list and not number two is because a lot of the hard work is done for you. So when you're doing private label on your own brands, there's a lot more risk and there's a lot of investment for people to get to know your brand and start trusting your brand. If you do brand deals and you open accounts with brands exclusively, okay, and I'm very, very strongly considering implementing this as one of my models, okay, when you exclusively have the rights to sell a brand that has already spent years and millions of pounds building their marketing, building their brand infrastructure, that trust, that credibility, and you become the exclusive seller of that product on Amazon, you're opened up to less risk, okay? Less risk because it's got proven track sales, less risk, less investment in PPC, marketing and things like that because it's been done for you in many cases. There's already people searching with this brand on Amazon, and you have unlimited scalability. And you might be thinking, yeah, but with a brand, if you put the effort in, you can sell that brand. Well, let me tell you, I know someone that's exited for millions, okay, or exited a part of their company, sold a part of their company for millions, that does brand deals. So although it's not their brands they're selling, because they have all the rights to sell other people's brands and because they've scaled that to such a stage, I know a seller, a company in the UK that has sold part of their reselling business, essentially their distribution business, where they do brand deals and they don't sell their own brands, they sell other people's brands for millions, and they still make millions themselves from the rest of the company they own. So it's an extremely scalable business model. It's less risk, and I believe that it's probably very, very similar in terms of the opportunity to private label and building brands. I think they've both got huge scalability potential, but I think doing brand deals, you could scale it a lot faster with a lot less risk, with a lot less investment in marketing. But obviously you're going to have to invest into stock, potentially do lower margins as well. But I just think, yeah, it's a close call. It's a close call, but it's number one on my tier list as far as I'm aware at the moment. So guys, please like, please share, please subscribe if you enjoyed that video, and make sure you check out the sponsor of this video below for £12 to set up your limited company and £100 off accounting if you use Awesome below. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.